Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take complex topics, sift through the sources, and, well, try to give you the key insights.
That's the plan.
And today, we are really unearthing something big, a conflict that's been running, often unseen, for over 100 years.
Yeah, that's right. We're calling it the 100-year intelligence war between East and West.
Mm.
It's all about the hidden ops, the strategy, the espionage.
The stuff that's really shaped our world behind the scenes.
Exactly. And it started, with the liberal democracies versus the Soviet Union, the first big one-party state.
Yeah.
But the lessons, they feel incredibly relevant looking at, say, China today.
Absolutely, and we've got a great stack of sources for this. Histories, declassified intel, personal accounts. So our mission really is to pull out the patterns, the surprising bits, the stuff that matters.
Think of it as your guide to these invisible forces, hopefully with a few shocking details to keep things interesting.
Okay, so to really get into this, maybe we should start by defining the sides. West versus East.
Good idea. Because the West, it's not just geography, is it? It's more a set of ideas. Liberal democracy, free speech, rule of law, that kind of thing. Alliances built around those ideas.
Right, and then the East.
Mm-hmm.
Originally the Soviet Union, now you could say Russia, China.
Yeah.
These are one-party states.
No independent courts, no free press, really.
Hmm.
And crucially, their intelligence agencies, they're there to serve the regime, control the population, not just gather secrets abroad.
Which creates this fundamental imbalance, this asymmetry.
Totally. Western societies are open. It costs a fortune for, say, the CIA to steal Soviet secrets, millions of dollars.
But the Soviets, they could just subscribe to magazines.
Well, pretty much. They got huge amounts from public sources like Aviation Week and space technology. And there's another layer, too, in these authoritarian systems.
Mm-hmm.
The intelligence chiefs often just told the leaders what they wanted to hear. Sycophancy is the word. Tell the boss bad news, and, well, it could be dangerous. On pain of death, sometimes.
Wow, so the information going up wasn't always accurate.
Mm-hmm. Often deeply flawed, which led to massive blind spots.
Okay, let's dive into ACTI then. The early stuff, World War II. You found some really early seeds of this conflict, right? Back in 1917.
Yeah, this amazing secret report that hit British intelligence. Russians basically admitting even back then they could only hold Ukraine by force.
And that Ukrainians were generally hostile.
Right, and that Russia couldn't really benefit economically beyond just taking things. It shows this deep-seated tension right from the start.
A century ago. Incredible. And then World War II, you called it a fulcrum.
Yeah, it really galvanized things. Intelligence agencies got serious. In the West, Britain, the U.S., they went from being, well, amateurs to real players. They had to learn fast.
But Stalin, his strategy during the war was something else.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yes, fighting Hitler was survival, but his grand strategy, the long view, that was always the inevitable conflict with the capitalist West.
So even while allied with the West.
He ordered his spies to steal Western science and tech secrets. On an industrial scale, he actually prioritized that over spying on the Nazis sometimes.
That's almost hard to believe. The level of distrust.
Well, think about the warnings about Hitler's invasion, Operation Barbarossa. Churchill sent warnings via ultra-ray decrypts. Short, cryptic, but clear.
And Stalin?
Ignored them. Multiple channels warned him. He was convinced Churchill was just trying to trick him into the war. Deep, deep paranoia.
And speaking of duplicity, the Cambridge spies.
Ah, yes. Philby, Burgess, McLean, Blunt, Cairncross. Breathtakingly successful doesn't even cover it. These guys were deep inside the most sensitive Allied programs.
Philby even ran the MI6 section hunting Soviet spies.
Exactly. The irony is staggering. Russia's SVR, the successor to the KGB, still calls them the Magnificent Five.
And the Western attitude at the time?
It was. Well, gentlemanly but naive is how one source puts it. Once the Soviets became allies against Hitler, the British Foreign Office actually stopped spying on them. A moratorium on all intelligence collection.
Based on the idea that allies don't spy on allies.
Precisely. Stalin, of course, had no such scruples. MI6 had zero presence in Moscow during the war, no real agents. This naivety was, frankly, costly.
Catastrophically costly when it came to the atomic bomb.
Right. This is where the betrayal really hits hard. Soviet moles, Klaus Fuchs, Ted Hall, others, they got the plans. Moscow had the intelligence 5 months before the U.S. even tested the first bomb.
5 months?
Meaning the Soviet bomb they detonated in 1949. It was an exact replica of the American one. Built from the recipe stolen by spies like George Koval, who Putin later named a hero of Russia.
That just changed everything, didn't it? The whole post-war world.
Fundamentally, it showed how ruthless and effective Soviet intelligence was, even against wartime allies, and it set the stage for the Cold War proper.
Which brings us to Act Two, post-war 1945. You said Britain and the U.S. basically knew nothing about Stalin's plans.
Pretty much no significant intelligence whatsoever. Truman even shut down the OSS, the wartime spy agency. MI5 nearly disbanded.
Well, the KGB.
Became the biggest intelligence service on Earth. Maybe 200,000 officials. A huge inequality of secret arms.
So how did the West even begin to respond to that?
Well, a big part of it was defectors. People coming over from the Soviet side and revealing what was going on, like Igor Gouzenko.
A GRU guy in Canada.
That's him. Defected in 45, revealed this huge spy network. Tragically, his mother died back in Moscow after intense KGB interrogation because of his defection. He ended up speaking publicly with a paper bag over his head.
Good grief. The human cost.
Absolutely. And then there was Elizabeth Bentley in the U.S.
Right. She claimed loads of Americans were spying, even in government. Harry Dexter White, one of the founders of the IMF.
Yeah. She named nearly 150 people, 37 in the federal government. The FBI was initially skeptical, partly due to her personal issues like heavy drinking, but her information turned out to be vital. It showed how deep the penetration went.
So these defections really woke the West up.
They had to. Truman, despite not having much foreign policy background, really built the U.S. national security structure we know today. The CIA was part of that.
He later said he never meant it to be all cloak and dagger, though.
Maybe not initially, but the policy of containment quickly got a clandestine offensive component. Things like Operation Red Sox, trying to use émigré groups for paramilitary stuff inside the Soviet Union.
And this period saw some intense human drama, right?
Yeah.
Assassination plots.
Oh, yeah. It really highlights the one side's traitor is the other's hero idea. Take Nikolai Koklov.
The KGB assassin.
Sent to kill a defector, but he flipped. Defected to the CIA and revealed the whole plot at this dramatic press conference. Showed off his weapon, a lethal cigarette box.
Wow. What happened to him?
The KGB didn't forget. They tried to kill him later with radioactive thallium, a slow, nasty poison.
Chilling. And you mentioned this foreshadows later Russian methods.
Exactly. Using these elaborate, often radioactive poisons to eliminate enemies abroad. We see echoes of that with Putin's Kremlin.
But it wasn't all human spies and poison, was it? The machines started playing a bigger role. SIGINT.
Signals intelligence. Absolutely crucial. After the war, the UK and US set up the USA agreement that became the Five Eyes Alliance. By 1946, they were decrypting something like 20,000 Soviet messages a month.
20,000 a month. How did they even process that?
That drove technological innovation. The NSA-funded Project Lightning, aiming to boost computer power by 1,000%, specifically to handle this flood of data. It was a digital arms race.
And then Operation Rubicon. That sounds like something out of a spy novel.
It almost is. The CIA and West German intelligence secretly bought Crypto AG, the world's top encryption company, for decades.
They own the company selling codes.
Effectively, yes. It gave them a back door and a front door. They were effectively blind copied on every communication using crypto machines sold around the world.
That is astonishing access.
Truly remarkable strategic advantage for decades.
Okay, let's shift to Act 3. The Cold War goes global, right? Beyond just U.S. versus Soviet Union, the Global South becomes a battleground.
Absolutely. Both sides were trying constantly to influence the non-aligned countries. It got messy. These interventions often reveal a pattern, actually.
What kind of pattern?
Ideological fear often winning out over good intelligence, leading to actions with really long-lasting, often negative consequences. Cuba is maybe the most famous example.
Bay of Pigs, 1961.
An inept attempt by the CIA to overthrow Castro. Sources say it was such a disastrous failure, CIA officers were literally vomiting into their bins.
Oof. But not all interventions were invasions. British Guiana.
That's a really complex one. The U.S. and UK used covert action, special political action against Chetty Jagan. He was democratically elected, Marxist, yes, but MI5's own analysis said he was mainly a nationalist, not really a Soviet puppet.
But they saw him as another Castro.
Pretty much. So the CIA funneled money, stirred up a crippling general strike to destabilize his government. Prime Minister Macmillan even pointed out the irony of the U.S. pushing Britain to basically maintain colonialism there. Shows how covert influence worked.
And the Congo.
Even darker. Eisenhower apparently gave orders for Lumumba to be got rid of. The CIA sent their Dr. Death, Sidney Gottlieb, with poisons. Eventually, Mobutu took over.
The dictator who looted the country.
Yeah, a brutal and corrupt dictator who became Washington's man for 30 years, got over $1 billion in U.S. aid while his personal fortune matched the country's debt. Cold War anxieties often led to backing strongmen over democracy.
And Chile, Allende. Did the CIA orchestrate that coup in '73?
The sources suggest they didn't orchestrate it directly, but they certainly created the climate for it through earlier covert actions.
Okay, so these interventions were widespread, but the ultimate flashpoint was the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962, nuclear brinkmanship.
The closest we ever came, probably. And intelligence, or lack thereof, was critical.
How so?
On the Soviet side, it was a mess. Khrushchev was, well, only some illiterate and basically did his own intelligence analysis. The KGB chief barely met with him, offered mostly gossip.
Unlike Stalin, who had spies everywhere.
Exactly. Back then, they'd penetrated Roosevelt's administration, but by '62, neither the KGB nor the GRU had any agents inside Kennedy's administration. A huge intelligence gap.
And on the Western side.
Western intelligence was crucial. The NSA, working with Britain's GCHQ, provided really precise tracking of Soviet ships heading to Cuba. They knew about the Soviet forces there. That gave Kennedy the vital time he needed to find a way out, diplomatically.
Despite the immense pressure on him.
Yeah, maintaining that outward air of calm, it shows just how vital good intel is in a crisis.
You also mentioned this period saw a shift in why people spied.
Definitely. The early ideological motivations started fading. By the later Cold War, for most Americans spying for the Soviets, it was about money. Cold, hard cash.
Like that former KGB guy Kalugin said, ideological spies just disappeared.
Pretty much. They dwindled steadily and finally disappeared altogether. Meanwhile, defectors to the West increased sharply. People were voting with their feet or selling secrets.
People like Jeffrey Prime at GCHQ.
Yeah, a social outcast and a pedophile offered his services. Or Robert Hansen at the FBI, Aldrich Ames at the CIA. Both motivated by money, never even met their handlers, some of them. The romance, if there ever was any, was gone. It was transactional.
Okay, Act 4. Reagan comes in, calls the Soviet Union the evil empire. Things heat up again.
Big time. Reagan doubled the intelligence budget, tripled covert action. The goal was explicit. Contain and reverse the expansion of Soviet control. A real offensive posture.
And a key figure here was Oleg Gordievsky, the MI6 mole inside the KGB.
Absolutely crucial. High-ranking KGB guy spying for MI6 for a decade. He gave incredible insights into how Reagan might best approach Gorbachev.
And he briefed Gorbachev, then briefed MI6 on his briefing with Gorbachev.
A remarkable situation, as the source puts it. His eventual escape from Moscow is the stuff of legends, too.
While Gordievsky was feeding insights, the Soviet leadership was paranoid. Operation Ryan.
Deeply paranoid about a surprise Western nuclear attack. Ryan was this huge intelligence effort to spot any deviation from normal NATO routine, anything that might signal an impending strike.
Leading to some bizarre instructions.
Totally absurd. Telling spies to check if lights were on late at the Ministry of Defense, or monitoring the price of blood at blood banks. They thought blood was bought and sold in the West, not donated.
Yeah, that level of misunderstanding is... wow. And it nearly led to disaster.
With the Able Archer crisis in 1983, it was just a NATO command post exercise, but the Soviets misinterpreted it through the lens of Ryan. A later U.S. investigation concluded, in 1983, we may have inadvertently placed our relations with the Soviet Union on a hair trigger.
A hair trigger. Scary stuff. And yet, despite all this focus, the actual collapse, it caught everyone off guard.
Well, yes and no. The CIA apparently saw the system was failing as early as 1985, started planning for collapse by '89. But did they predict the speed? The way it happened? No. Neither U.S. nor British intelligence saw that coming.
They were watching CNN like the rest of us.
Pretty much. Watching events play out on CNN like everyone else. It wasn't a CIA plot. It was an internal unraveling.
Gorbachev trying to fix it, but breaking it instead.
Like a Shakespearean tragic hero, yeah. He tried reforms, but just punched a hole in a rotten system, and it all came tumbling down, driven from below. The economic reality was dire.
Right. Living standards like the poorest Western European country. Hardly any computers compared to the U.S.
Yeah, 50,000 PCs versus 30 million. And the KGB itself, for all its size, had maybe a dozen analysts. The CIA had 2,000, a huge gap in just understanding the information they had.
Then came the wild 90s in Russia. Yeltsin, shock therapy.
Right, and democracy there arguably never recovered after Yeltsin shelled the parliament in '93. Corruption just exploded. FSB officers, the KGB's successors, went from gamekeepers to poachers getting involved in organized crime.
And Putin himself was reportedly mixed up in that.
Sources suggest his early career put him between the Russian government and booming organized crime.
And during this chaotic period, the West discovered something terrifying.
The sheer scale of the old Soviet biological weapons program, vast, illegal, capable of weaponizing smallpox, plague, delivered by ICBMs, all in violation of a treaty they'd signed. A truly chilling discovery.
Which brings us right up to Act V, the New Order. Putin's Russia, China's rise. Putin's own ascent was surprising, wasn't it?
Meteoric, yeah. From KGB obscurity, nobody had predicted him taking over, and he immediately leaned into his KGB background.
Using the old playbook.
Straight from it. Espionage, deep cover illegals, assassinations, disinformation, active measures, all the classics.
And after 9/11, he played a clever game.
Brilliantly played, according to some sources. Convinced the West he was an ally in counterterrorism.
Wow, secret.
Pushing a grand strategy to make Russia great again, reverse the injustices of the Soviet collapse, offering cooperation while undermining Western interests.
We definitely saw that playbook in the 2016 U.S. election interference.
A sweeping and systematic attack. It used new tools, social media, but the tactics, the goals. Straight out of the old KGB manual. Maybe the skill was surprising, but the attempt wasn't, given the history. And Putin apparently wanted revenge on Hillary Clinton personally.
And the battlefield has shifted online now, too. Cyber attacks.
Massively. From the 2007 attack that crippled Estonia's infrastructure to the huge 2020 SolarWinds hack, Russia's SVR got malware into millions of systems, hitting over 100 companies, government agencies. It's a persistent and largely unseen cyber war now.
But Putin isn't infallible. Ukraine.
An epic strategic failure, right up there with Stalin misjudging Hitler. And why? Probably that same old problem, a sycophantic court telling him only what he wanted to hear, confirming his biases.
The echoes are powerful. And this history, you argue, is an urgent warning about China.
Definitely. The assessment is stark. The U.S. is already in a Cold War with China, at least in intelligence and security terms.
And China presents a different kind of challenge.
An asymmetric threat, yes. It's a digital authoritarian police state. Ubiquitous surveillance makes traditional spying incredibly hard for outsiders.
And they use a whole-of-society approach.
Exactly. Blurring lines between intelligence and business, using supposedly private companies, Chinese nationals abroad, diaspora communities. The goal seems to be overwhelming Western counterintelligence purely by the volume of activity.
And they're stealing secrets on a massive scale.
An unprecedented onslaught. Hacking, stealing commercial and government secrets, like that case of Zhu Yanjun, the intel officer posing as a businessman to get GE aviation tech.
And recruitment has changed too.
Yeah.
No more ideology, not much cash. What's the new angle?
LinkedIn, apparently. The marketplace for foreign intelligence recruitment is now LinkedIn. Ex-government folks advertising their security clearances become comparatively easy targets.
Targets for what?
False flag operations. Chinese or Russian officers posing as recruiters for risk consultancies, offering big money. The motivation now seems to be divided loyalties, maybe feeling undervalued rather than pure ideology or just cash.
In another echo, China's system might discourage honest reporting upwards.
Very likely. Like the Soviets, the Chinese Communist Party does not incentivize intelligence officers to think independently and challenge political orthodoxy. So, when their archives eventually open, we might find the same problem. A huge ability to collect intelligence, but a limited ability to assess it accurately.
A potential Achilles heel.
Could be. Meanwhile, Western agencies, having focused so much on counterterrorism after 9/11, are described as only recently awakened to the scale of the Chinese effort. They're struggling to catch up.
Chasing a horse that has already bolted the stables.
That's the assessment, yeah.
So quite a journey, 100 years of secret wars, from telegrams and dead drops to LinkedIn and cyber attacks. It's clear intelligence, good or bad, stolen or gathered, has massively shaped our world, often with huge human costs.
Yeah, the betrayals, the lives ruined, it's intense. But this deep dive really shows this clash of civilizations, authoritarianism versus liberal democracy, isn't just talk. It's a real ongoing fight on constantly shifting battlefields.
So, reflecting on all these patterns, the asymmetry between open and closed societies, the way authoritarian regimes handle intelligence, the sheer persistence of espionage, what's the biggest takeaway for you listening right now? What's a critical lesson for today? Maybe the most provocative thought is, while we focus on external threats, could that seductive pull of authoritarianism and the corruption that often comes with it actually rise from within our own societies too?